Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another live edition of your award-winning Let's Talk America with host Shana Thornton podcast. Of course, I'm Shana, your on-air host and your executive producer. And tonight's edition is going to be yet another exciting and informative episode. And tonight we're spotlighting two, not just one, but two amazing topics that are trending right now. Did you know that November is National Adoption Month? And also November is recognized as National Caregivers Month. I'm no expert in either, but tonight we've got the best and the brightest to help us really navigate these important topics. I'm so excited to welcome back to the program two dear friends of mine that I happen to know personally. First up, we have a social worker who really does amazing work in the Atlanta metro area. I'm talking about the one and only Dr. Kimberly Underdew is with us, giving her a virtual clap. She's going to speak with us tonight about adoption, and she's also going to talk with us about the importance of really addressing everybody's needs when it comes to caregiving as well. So that's what you get when you have an award-winning social worker on with you. And also, last introduction, but certainly not least, it's the one and only Miss Sadiqa Gibson with us. Want to give a round of applause to her. She's also an acclaimed gerontologist, and she works tirelessly in the nonprofit arena, really addressing the needs of our senior citizens. And believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, at some point, all of us will be considered senior citizens. So excited to talk with her about caregivers tonight on this show. I want you to get your questions ready. I want you to get your comments ready. If you remember your mom or dad taking care of grandmother, your sister or brother, we want to get the comments and the feedback because we believe here on Let's Talk America podcast that when you educate, you motivate, and you empower and inspire. And that's what we aim to do. But we have a tradition here on this program, many of you know, and that tradition is we ask our exclusive guests to introduce themselves. I can read the CV and resume and bore you. We'd rather not do that. We have a tradition where 2 minutes or less, Dr. Amdadu, we ask that you tell us what's your personal connection to social work and adoption. We love to hear from you. Take it away.
Well, thank you, Shana. Thank you for the opportunity. Again, I'm Dr. Kimberly Underdew. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. And why did I become a social worker? Why did I become an adoptive parent? So, becoming a social worker, I always like to help people. And she knows this. My mentor was Dr. Dorothy Irene Height, who was a civil rights icon and social worker. When I just graduated from college, I started working at a bank, and I did collections. And people would tell me all kind of stories about why they could not pay their bill, and most of the stories were true. And I knew once they started telling me the stories and telling me how they lost their job or certain things, the social worker just came out of me, and I said, I cannot do collections anymore. I immediately got enrolled at Clark Atlanta School of social work, and became a social worker so I could stop doing those collection calls. And so that's why I became a social worker over 30 years ago. Love it. And we're going to talk about Adoption Month. And I am an adoptive mother and been blessed to be an adoptive mother for over past 10 years, and want to definitely talk more about that.
I love it. Oh, wow. And that is something very important that you have your own story with. So thank you, Dr. Underdew, for sharing that with us as well. Sadiqa Gibson, a gerontologist, you do a lot of great work in the community. Tell us your personal connection really to addressing aging seniors. I love your platform. I love that you want all of us right now, if we're in our 30s, 40s, or 50s, to get moving, to get active, and really make a plan. But what's your connection to this, Sadiqa?
Thank you so much for having me, Shana. And I'd like to say to my friend, Dr. Underdew, she was a little bit modest. She is also an author. And so I hope during our time together, she shares a little bit about her brand new book. But at any rate, I am Sadiqa Gibson, and my passion is the older adult or the mature adult community, and specifically caregivers. My grandmother was a caregiver. And my family and I watched her care for her mother and her father. And she put a lot into it. And it was during a time where Caregiving was not a buzzword, if you will, the way it is today. So she did not have the support and the resources other than her family, my siblings, my mother and I, and of course, other relatives who helped her in that particular journey. But of course, today, with the aging community growing faster than a speeding bullet, if you will, it's more and more important for us to really understand what caregiving is and understand how we can support caregivers. And I'm very happy that November is bringing attention to family caregivers who often go unnoticed because they provide care for no pay. They do it strictly out of passion and love and commitment for their loved one. But I tell you what, it's imperative for all of us to get involved and to also start to think proactively about who's going to take care of us. Because at any time or day, we all fall into one of four categories. We're either currently a caregiver, we will be a caregiver, we have been a caregiver, or we will need a caregiver. So, with that in mind, I'd like to encourage everyone, if you know a caregiver, give that individual a hug. Thank that individual. See what you can do to help that individual, because that person is not only given of their time and their resources. Caregivers give upwards of $7,000 of their own personal money to care for their loved one or other individuals. So these people are actually God's angels on earth, and we want to continue to support them.
I love that. That is really, really amazing information for all of us to keep in mind. I love, Sadiqa, the fact that you said at some point, all of us have certainly been a caretaker in
Mhm.
that situation. And what I think of is just being a baby, being a kid, right? Our parents taking care of us and really seeing the model for that. Good, bad, or indifferent, right? Either way. Dr. Underdew, I want to start with you about adoption. Such a special gift. I have several friends that have adopted. Beautiful gift. Many of them say it describes as the best thing they have
Mhm.
ever done. And I don't want us to be overly obvious, but explain what adoption is here in the US, because I think a lot of people use it in a secular term, and a lot of times there's not a legality behind it. But
Mhm.
talk with us about it.
Shayna, thank you. Thank you. I want to put some historical context in this. We in the African American community have always been caregivers. We've always taken in children. It could have been your great aunt who
Mhm,
wasn't able to have children of her own, and maybe there was a family member that couldn't take care of their children for a variety of reasons, and they would send that child to great aunt Pidge or great aunt Martha, and she would love those children, take care of those children. Those children may call her mom, and what we call that is informal adoption. We didn't need the paperwork, we didn't sign anything. The children knew who their biological parent was, but they were
mhm,
tied to that great aunt and it as an endearment in motherhood. But as times changed, legal things came in, some cultural aspects of children being taken away from the family because maybe it was five to a bed, and my
mhm,
mom was raised. I'm sure Sadiqa could talk about my mom, sisters all slept, four of them slept in one bed.
mhm,
My
mhm,
grandmother took care of her children. Children never need to
mhm,
come into care. But as time went by, some biases came in place and children were taken from the home. And so it was an astronomical amount of African American children that are in care. And so you fast forward it to today, you may not have all that because different people will get that child an extra bed of their own
Okay.
and such. So we formalized adoption.
Yes.
As more
mhm,
kids come into care, and we don't want kids lingering in foster care. And foster care is a whole nother subject that you have definitely touched on.
Yeah.
So we have about 11,000 children in Georgia that are in
Wow.
foster care,
Okay.
and
Wow.
so about 20% of those children are ready for adoption.
I see.
And we need African American families to adopt children.
Mhm.
Make no mistake, we adopt at a higher rate
Okay.
than any other population. And so I decided to adopt because that was a personal choice I wanted to make.
Okay.
There are various ways to have children, being a single mother, and also wanting to adopt an older child that was 6 years
Okay.
old. I
Mhm.
decided that adoption was definitely for me. I wanted a little boy, and I'm sure we'll talk more about my son,
Yes.
specifics about him later on. But there's a lot of single women like me
Mhm.
that say, "Hey, I want to have children. I may not want to. I'm not married, and I want to do it a different way." And that's how I decided to do it.
hmm Wow,
Mhm.
congratulations. And I've met
Thank
your son.
you.
What a beautiful family.
Yeah.
Let's talk about historical aspect. And you brought it
Mhm,
up when you sort of went through, and as a social worker, there is
mhm,
a journey when it comes to child's care here in the United States. Unfortunately, for any culture or race, it wasn't that long ago where there were children of all cultures being neglected or abused at a concerning rate. And social work comes into be as a profession and really doing some wonderful work. My
mhm.
stepmom's an amazing social worker, so much props and kudos to your profession and all that you all do. Really help tremendously. With that being said, talk with us about historical sense of some biasness or misnomers people have about adoption. Because I've once covered some cases where there were individuals realizing for them, and every family is different, that the child was likely better off in adoption, but the young lady has shared that she had other people telling her, well, you don't need to do that. Don't worry about that. We don't give our children up for adoption. Help us through
Mhm.
that, because obviously we know there are people that make decisions for themselves, and there's no cookie cutter formula that fits everybody, Dr. Underdo. But for those individuals who are trying to push past that and really focus on what's best for the child, what does that look like in a healthy sense?
Well, Shana, I want to first say a good social worker will always tell you what's best for the child is preserving the biological family.
Okay.
That
Mhm.
that is the best thing. Okay, child comes into care. What is it that we could do to keep the child with their biological family?
Okay.
Is there any aunties? Is there any uncles? Is there any grandparents that would take care of this particular child? Now, those are children that have lived with their families for a while
hmm
and they're connected to them. So we want to preserve the family. But there
Mhm.
are there are cases where unfortunately the family cannot take care of the children for various reasons. It could be the mother or the father have fell on, they're in prison,
Okay.
could be incarcerated. Unfortunately, it's hard to preserve the family
Absolutely.
if you don't have other extended family members that will take your children
That's right.
in. It could be drug usage, it could be mental health.
That's right.
I want to give DFACS kudos because they do put services in place to
Okay.
try to help families maintain their children. So I'm not a DFACS or system basher on that. They do put things in place.
Okay.
But there are also situations where there's a young mother who says, you know what, I'm making an early decision where I want to, and I don't like the word give up. I don't like it because when you are making a decision to have your child adopted, you're not giving up on them.
That's right.
What you have made a decision is that I can't take care of a child right now. I
Mhm.
might be 20, 21, 22, or I may be 32 with four other children, and I can't afford to do this. So I'm giving my child um, a different setting so that they can thrive because I cannot provide. That is an unselfish decision.
Okay.
Some people may say it's selfish, but I just don't ever like the
Mm-hmm.
word I'm giving up my
Uh-huh.
child for adoption because you're
I
not
love.
giving it up. You're
Yeah.
giving um, your child a different environment so that they could thrive
Absolutely.
because you are unable to do it. And
Absolutely.
then we also have nowadays international adoptions.
Yes.
There are people in our communities that are going to Africa, they're going to Haiti, they're going to various places and taking in children where that country and the individuals in it may not be able to provide.
Mm-hmm.
for them.
Absolutely. So many different options to give amazing blessings of children
Yes.
new opportunity. And I will say, and of course, Dr. Underdo, I know you believe this as well as a social worker. Every family unit is different, right? And there are
Mhm.
different decisions that families have to come to. But I think if a family comes to that decision, it may be a courageous decision because they may be going against cultural biasness and what people
Mhm.
will say and chatter, if you will. Some of the things we've all heard. You gave your child away, and I don't like those that word and verbiage either. But that, unfortunately, is what
Mhm.
peers and family members will do for different individuals out
Mhm.
there. But like you said, if it's a better opportunity for the child, and that parent can see that, and that's what they're moving with, it can be quite courageous to do it. In my opinion,
Mhm.
certainly.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
Shana, I want to say this, that we historically would say, don't give your child away, as
Yeah,
you
that's
stated.
right.
We don't do that in our community.
Hmm.
But as I just told you, with informal adoption, we've always said, and maybe that's where historical aspects may have been more
Mhm.
advantageous, because we had cousins and aunts and uncles that would help us with our
That's
children.
right.
So
That's
that
right.
village, as that village separates, this is what
Mhm.
we
Correct.
get right now. This
That's
is where,
right.
when
Mhm.
you dissolve the village concept, this is where we are, where
Yeah.
some of our children are in the system and probably
Mhm.
don't need to be.
Yeah, and absolutely, and the
Mhm.
world's more transient, more global, right?
Mhm.
You may have a village, but your sister may live in San Diego and you're in Atlanta,
Hmm.
so
Mhm.
she's not able to help as physically as she would like to. This is your show to all of our listeners and viewers. We've got some as far as California, we've got them, of course, Atlanta, Georgia, and South Carolina listening. We want your questions, we want your comments, and first up, we have the one and only Dr. Green out of Atlanta, an acclaimed educator. She's got a great question. She's asking, and this is a woman who's worked with children for decades as an educator and a leader in the education system. She says, how do adoptive families work through traumas children have experienced? Dr. Undu, I want to send that to you. And then I do want Sadiqa, also being an individual who's worked with family units, to also address that. But Dr. Underdo, take on that question for us.
Oh, Dr. Green, working in the education system, thank you. Thank you, because the educators are the first, they're the front line. They
Mhm.
see things really early on, and they make sure that our children are safe. So thank you. Trauma, the, being in care is traumatic. Being taken away from your family is traumatic. And a lot of people say, well, the mother wasn't taking care of the kids. You're doing such
Mhm.
a good thing by taking them away from their home. But think about this. If your mother, that's the only connection you have, that's the only mother you know,
That's
no
correct.
matter how difficult they are in, they could be physically abusive to you.
That's right.
That's your mother. So being
Mhm.
taken away from her or your dad. So let me say dads too, because I keep saying
That's right.
mothers.
That's
Dads
right.
got responsibilities too.
Mhm.
Take
Absolutely.
away from the family is traumatic. And then being in foster care is traumatic. Then think about it. Being moved from place to
That's right.
place to place is traumatic.
Mhm.
Then you have these adoption type of fairs where basically people are meeting you, and you may be ready to be adopted, and you're 6 or 7 years old, and then nobody chooses you. That's traumatic. So it's a lot of
Mhm.
trauma. So what the system does now, and I like what defects does, is they call trauma informed care. If you're a parent, a foster parent, if you're a worker, if you're a group home operator, if you work with children, period, you have to have trauma informed care. And what trauma informed care does is it asks those questions. You know, don't expect children to be grateful because you're taking care of them,
Yeah.
because you don't know all the trauma that they have incurred. And I think a lot of people are saying, oh, you're an adoptive mother. Oh, I know your son is grateful. Well, I'm grateful to have him. I shouldn't, we can't think of children being grateful and
Mhm.
thankful
Too
when they've
restricted.
endured all these traumas.
Mm.
Mhm.
Such a great point you're making, and we have to remember this. Many of us maybe 50 years old or 60, and we'll start trying to figure life out. What
Yes.
does a 12-year-old do? They're trying to figure life
Yes.
out. So I always say we have to certainly give grace to all of us, regardless of where we are on the age spectrum of life, but certainly understand that. Sadiqa, I want to turn that to you. You're a parent as well. You work with different family units in a different way from Dr. Underdo. But great question from Dr. Green. How do adoptive families work through the traumas children have experienced?
Well, the thing about it is communication, 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 communication. And then most definitely, we have to think about the counseling. And I know traditionally in our community, we've kind of, well, let's read our Bible. But we need the Bible, and we also need to talk to someone. We need to talk with a professional. And
Yes.
so I always say that we need to kind of grab all of the parties, and let's go and have someone who is unbiased and someone who is trained to kind of help us through this. I've talked to a few people who work in nursing homes and other assisted living communities, and sometimes they said that they would think, well, gosh, why isn't the family here to visit
Mm.
mom or dad? And then once they start having conversations, they realize that, well, mom and dad may not have been the best of mom and dad. And so that's why they're here. And that's why no one's coming to visit them. So that's 12-year-old trauma that
That's
graduates
right.
all the way through high
That's
school
right.
and college and
Mhm.
older adult, et cetera, et cetera. So we really do need to just kind of sit back and communicate, reach out to those professionals. And then, again, just like Dr. Underdew mentioned earlier, that village. Somehow we've got to kind of reel that village back in so
Yes.
that we can, support each other.
Yeah,
Mhm.
such a great answer. Thank you for saying that because many therapists, as you know, we've had psychiatrists and psychologists on this show who have said trauma unhealed will reveal itself. And you're absolutely right. That's a real life component, even for individuals that are displaced, that may not have homes. And many people I've seen out in the community say, well, they've got brothers and sisters, and how can that be? And sometimes it's easy to say that, not understanding the full gamut of relationships and behavior and mental and emotional health and isolation from individuals as well. And so, and a
Mhm.
lot of times that pain and trauma keeps building, and people are really in survival mode, right, Dr. Underdo? As a
Yes.
social worker, I'm sure you've seen that many times. And when people are in survival mode, they're just trying to make it through. And a
Mhm.
lot of times that may mean cutting mom or dad off
Yeah.
just to be in a good place mentally. Am I
Mhm.
right, Dr. Underdo, on that?
You absolutely would. Self care.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Self
Yeah.
care is not selfish. And sometimes you had to preserve your sanity. You had to preserve your mental health. And I love I'm gonna call it Sadiqa.
Mm-hmm.
I love what Sadiqa stated, that you can't assume they got family members, but the trauma of the parental role. And
That's right.
I had a friend who just told me the other day. I was like, why did you sell your house, where your family grew up? Because I'm picturing that they had the perfect family. And
Yes.
he told me I had a lot of bad memories in this
Oh,
house.
wow.
And
Okay.
he said I had to sell it. And
Okay.
what I'm thinking is the caregiver he had, the person, the great aunt that took care of him, was just fantastic. After all these years, I'm
Mhm.
seeing something in a different view.
Yeah.
And so now
Yeah.
I understand where some of the gaps happen,
Right. Yeah.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, because like Sadiqa says, we can't assume
That's right.
that relationship was was great, and maybe that's
Absolutely.
why it wasn't so great, and that's why those family members are not coming in and
Yeah.
taking care of them. But as a twist to it, one thing I could say is if you visit your family in nursing homes and
Yes.
settings like that, speaking from someone
Mm-hmm.
that had to visit their family members,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
if you show up, the personnel at that place is going to show up. If
Mm-hmm.
you come and you ask questions,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to say their family member is coming to see them on a regular basis.
Okay.
And Miss Underdo is going to be checking on her family members, and we need to make sure. It
Yes.
shouldn't be that way, We
Mhm.
need to make sure her questions, her
Mhm.
answers are there because she's gonna come with questions on a regular
Mhm.
basis.
It's
Mhm.
so important. We have so many
Yes.
Mhm.
medical doctors, surgeons come on here that constantly say engagement, interaction is what
Mhm.
is needed.
Mhm.
We've had
Mhm.
award-winning educators come on this show that keep saying it's about engagement with your children, not just
Mhm.
being there, but like you're saying,
Mhm.
being curious, asking the right logical questions because it really
Mhm.
does show you care. We've got another great question from that acclaimed educator, Dr. Green, and this is a really good one. This one's for you, Dr. Underdew. She says there's a huge difference between putting first children up for adoption and putting a latter child up for adoption. There's that why me concept. I have known this. I have a very good friend who went through this. She was one of the middle children who were put up. So the parents had older children that were not put up. This child
Mhm.
was. And then they kept some other children. And that was something my friend had to work through. Dr. Underdew, walk us through that because that's a wonderful question. And you don't know where people will lie within the family makeup. And that would be a great question. Sometimes I think we're a little more understanding of the older children, right? When mom perhaps
Mhm.
had the child at 14 or 15. But sometimes when it becomes a later child and others are not giving up, I do think it's a natural human response to say, as Dr. Green eloquently pointed out, why me?
You know,
Mhm.
Shana, those are some of those mysteries that just really can't
Yeah.
be answered because I know several people were in that situation
Mm,
where the older children were maintained, they they were taken in care, and then they kept some younger children as well. And I
Mhm.
only would say is it depends sometimes, Shana, I hate to say it depends on who fathers the children.
wow.
Mhm.
My.
Mhm. I've
It
heard
depends
that.
on who fathers the
Okay.
children. Maybe you
Okay.
feel some type of way. Maybe it's the feelings you have for
Mm,
that particular person. It could be the state that you're in, where you say, "Hey, I'm choosing to give this child up for adoption because I can't afford it." Then later on in life, you may regret it, and you say, "I'm gonna keep my other children."
I
That's
see.
really a hard question to really answer. But
Mm,
the friend I just talked about was in that exact same
okay.
situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
That friend was in that exact situation where older children were kept. He was sent to a family member, and then the younger ones were maintained. And that mystery for him has never been solved. It
Wow.
just never been solved. I wish I could answer that question a better way, but it's all kind of factors
Yes.
for that.
And I
Mhm.
think there's some things in life I think you come to accept that you're never going to likely get an answer that would satisfy you. I'm going on a limb and just saying that Sadiqa and Dr. Underdo that, we can always say, wow, many things. There are many things that we can't explain that are unpleasant about life, that are mysteries about life. But we have to accept there are some things that we can never really get the answer to. That would be satisfactory. And I think not perhaps with this question, but other things, if you do ask the person that you see as the perpetrator or as the person that was the villain in your story,
Mhm.
are they really able to give you an answer that would mentally satisfy you? And I think
Mhm.
that's a fair question because whatever they say, why the hurt occurred or and the hurt you interpret, will it satisfy whatever you have inside? And I think it depends on it, but sometimes it's just no.
Yeah.
And that's
You
just
know,
me saying that.
I'd
Yeah.
like to weigh in on this. So, being an
Sure.
older child, I'm the oldest of seven,
Oh, wow.
and so from that perspective, I do know that the parents depend on the older children to
Hmm.
kind of
That's
fill
a
in
good
the
point.
gap and to kind of support them. And the older child often becomes kind of like a surrogate parent.
Yes.
So my belief is that in some cases there could be a little bit of that. Well, these are the older ones. They can care for themselves. They're pretty much
Okay.
self-sufficient.
Good
They can
point.
help with the younger children. So perhaps this is someone. And then that type of mentality cascades into when you become older, because actually
Good point.
when you look at caregiving, m- most of the time it's the older daughter.
It
The
is.
oldest
It
daughter
is.
is the one who is involved in the caregiving, making the decisions, doing the research in the trenches. And
Yes.
as a matter of fact, I read something recently because they're telling older adults where, hey, you actually need to start thinking and identifying who's going to be the person that's going to be helping me out here.
Mhm.
And so they're saying now families who have at least three females are
Okay.
more likely to get better care when they get older. And
Wow.
so when I read that statistic, I thought, oh boy, I'm doomed because I only have a son.
But you know
Wait a
what?
minute. All of us are boy moms.
I
Yeah,
know
we
it.
all boy mom.
But you
I'm
know,
gonna make friends with his wife.
there you go. I would, hey, but you know what, Sadiqa? I have an aunt, and she it has dementia and it's in her late 80s. And I'm proud to say she has two sons. And
Mm-hmm.
for a while, each son and their wives,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they was 6 months, they would go to one, 6 months they
Mm-hmm.
would go to
Beautiful.
the other.
Oh
And
yeah.
now
Beautiful.
she's at a state where she just can't move like that, even in
Okay.
six
Mm-hmm.
months. And they
Mm-hmm.
have made a decision that they stay with my youngest cousin. And
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
so I want to give a shout out to those men
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
who
Some
are
Mm-hmm.
amazing
stepping in
sons.
and
Mm-hmm.
Amazing sons
caregiving.
out there.
Yes,
That's right.
and there
Yeah.
are men who are adoptive parents as well.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Very good.
Absolutely. I've
Yes.
known some. Sadiqa and Dr. Underdo, thank you so much for that. And Sadiqa, I do want to piggyback on, and of course, this is a conversation tonight. Thank you, everyone, watching your award winning Let's Talk America with host Shana Thornton podcast. I'm Shana, your on air host and executive producer. We're speaking with the one and only professional clinical social worker, Dr. Kimberly Underdo. She's also a published author now. We're going to get on her book a little later. And we're speaking with gerontologist Sadiqa Gibson out of Atlanta, who has dedicated years of her life with a nonprofit and addressing the changing needs of seniors. And guess what? That will be us sooner or later, God willing. Sadiqa, I do have an important question for you. When you did ask, you said, well, you stated that a lot of times if they have daughters, they're better off in a sense, or they would choose the oldest daughter. And you told your story, of course, being the oldest of seven. I want to talk for real people because that's what we're about on this show. And many times I do think the oldest daughter or the daughter, a lot of things fall in her lap automatically, especially if it's mother and daughter. We know that dynamic is often there. But uh, should parents, and as we age with our children or nieces or nephews, whoever we think would be the guardian, legal guardian or physical guardian for us as we age, should we not just be looking for my oldest daughter, but even who's more suited? And I know that's a sticky question that comes into play because sometimes older children say, well, I'm the oldest, I'm the one who sort of helped mom all these years, I should be the one doing it. But a lot of times, mentally and emotionally, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes physically, that older child, whoever mom thinks would be the best, isn't suited really to handle everything mom or dad's going through.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot
Well,
to care for people, and you know that.
oh, yes, and that's a real question. Well, ideally, it would be the person who's responsible, the person who's mature,
Okay.
the person whose lifestyle may be
Okay.
more beneficial for taking on this task. And then, actually, in a perfect world, it would mean everybody participating and
Yes.
dividing the work up. But as you know, there's always going to be a leader. And
That's
so
right.
what it is that
That's right.
in most cases, and the data shows this, in most cases, it is the oldest daughter who is
Okay.
that mature
Mhm.
person, that responsible one, that person that kind of has things worked out where she can handle this.
I think you're telling your personal testimony because you're the oldest.
Well, I'm not biased. No, it's amazing. I'm
We
not
I
both
know.
the
totally
oldest.
biased.
Yes, I
Go
know.
and look at the data. It will
Us
show.
younger ones matter too. I'm just.
But you know what, Shayna,
It's- but
I would like to ask this of Sadiqa. Would you encourage more people to sit down with their families
Mhm.
and say, these are my wishes? I really, I
Yes.
only have one son, so I don't have to do that. But
Mhm.
with families with multiple children, should they sit down and say,
Good
these are
question.
my wishes?
And be realistic. I'm gonna throw this piggyback
You got
component in for you, Dr. Underdo. And be realistic, even though one may jump up and say it's me. Sadiqa, would you agree? And Dr. Underdo, the son that's been missing, or perhaps the son who's had some substance issues, or perhaps the son who hasn't taken care of himself properly, or the daughter, even though they may be eager, realistically, how does that parent take that when they may be hurting their child's feelings? I love you so much and I love you all the same, but you're not as responsible as your sister.
Mhm. Yeah, and then and then the flip side of that, the oldest person could just be worn out and tired and
That's
don't
right.
even want to fool with it.
Mental. It could
Right.
be a mental, yeah, burden. It can be.
Right, but the thing about it is, and this is a perfect discussion because we've got Thanksgiving right around the corner. So
Mhm.
families are going to be
Yes.
gathering. Of people are going to be going to see families that they haven't seen in years, and so they're going to pick up things. Oh, mom is not moving as fast as she
Yeah.
used to.
That's right.
Mom put the keys in the refrigerator. These kinds of things
That's
are going
right.
to start coming up.
That's
And so,
right.
yeah, it's the best time to actually start thinking about like you always say in the wills and trust, the power of
Yes.
attorney, all of these things. You do have to have those conversations and then and get real and honest about it and consider, what is the best plan of action. And people are going to just have to do it and not be emotional and just
Wow.
realize that this
Yeah.
this is real
Yes.
and we have to be very level-headed and
Mm.
objective and do what's best for our parents.
Yeah.
And
And,
what a
and
great point. Go ahead, Sadika.
no, I was going to say, and I know you guys are kidding me around the older thing, but although the data does show that, I mean, it could be anybody who's
She's putting
responsible.
emphasis on that, Dr. Anderson.
Data.
The data
So
says the oldest
it,
kids are the smartest ones.
Yeah.
so it could
Yeah.
be anybody
Yeah.
who's responsible and who the
That's
parent
right.
deemed
Yeah.
will do the best job.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
is such a great point. And thank you for
Mhm.
sharing this. This is real talk for real people. We're talking about National Adoption Month. We're talking about National Caregivers Month. You're joining us, or this is a replay. You are in for a treat. This is a very delightful, motivational conversation with two exclusive experts. We have gerontologist Sadiqa Gibson out of Atlanta with us, and also Dr. Kimberly Underdew. She's a professional clinical social worker who spent years working with individuals in the communities, wanting them to be their best. And we certainly appreciate both of you ladies being on. We're going to get to the questions and comments. We have more. Mr. Morris says, when it comes to adoption, sometimes it's just simply part of God's plan because the anointing has been set aside in an unfamiliar path and angels have been assigned to cover them in a walk that isn't with their biological parents. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I certainly think, and I'll say this, and Dr. Underdew, with you being adoptive parent, please join in on this, but I certainly will say, good parenting is good parenting,
It
right?
is.
And I'm going to paraphrase Oprah Winfrey, who once said, "Blood is the least component that makes you family." And
Mm.
that's such a powerful point because love is love. You have, if it's an aunt giving it, adoptive mother, adoptive father, it is love. And I happen to believe, and we've had psychiatrists come on this show and say this, there are lots of things parents think they can do to make a child have a productive life. It's not necessarily sending them to Europe. It's not a skiing trip. It's not even ballet lessons. It sounds great, or even math lessons. It's having at least one stable, dependable adult in their life. And if that can't be the biological parents, Dr. Underdew, it just simply
Mhm.
can't. But as long as that child's been giving an angel, as Mr. Morris pointed out. Your thoughts on it?
I could agree with him more. I think this is a good segue to just talk about my little personal
Mhm.
piece where my son came into my life when he was 6 years old. Um, and his mother, for whatever reason, could not care for him.
Okay.
He was ready to be adopted. And like I tell people all the time, they said, "Oh, you saved him." It wasn't about saving. You know, he blessed me with the gift
Beautiful.
of parenthood. And
Beautiful.
I believe that God made my son for me.
Yes.
You know, that
Mhm.
certain ways of having children that wasn't in God's plan, that wasn't the
Mhm.
plan for me. But I could tell the audience and you and Sadiqa, I could not love my son any
Ah,
more than if
beautiful.
I birthed him.
Beautiful.
I couldn't. He's now
Beautiful.
19 years old. I got him when he was 6. I was blessed with him when I was 6, and he's 19, about to start Morris Brown College, woo woo, in the fall, doing really really well. And he always say, "Mommy, you God's blessing to me."
Oh,
you know and
beautiful.
and to his biological mother, and he knows who his biological parents are.
Okay.
I'm a social worker. I don't keep that from him.
Okay.
I'm very honest and open. I do believe in open adoption. Some people don't. They feel like they don't want the children to know that they're adopted, or they don't want the
Mhm.
children to know their biological family. And for me, that's trauma too.
Okay.
Mhm.
That's
Mm.
just me being a licensed
Mhm.
clinical social worker.
Yes, seeing
We
the other
have to
side
be
of it.
honest with children. And I told his biological mother that in our house, you will always be honored as the birth mother. We will never talk bad about you. We will never say anything negative about you.
Okay.
And we've never done that. My son has never heard me say a negative thing
Beautiful.
about his biological parents. And I think I've garnered a lot of respect from him for that, you know. And anytime that he wants to, he's 19. It's social media, Instagram is out there. These kids
Yes.
are going to look for their biological parents.
Yes.
Let
Mhm.
them do that with you. He's never asked to do that, but he knows that if he wanted to, he could come to me and we could do it together. You know,
Beautiful.
I probably could make one phone call.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
I thank Mr. Moore for that statement,
Yes, beautiful.
Mhm.
Thank
because
you, Mr. Morris.
Mhm.
African Americans adopt 4 times more than any other population, given the same economic levels.
Mm,
Mhm.
okay.
We take care of children.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing your perspective, Dr. Underdew and Sadiqa. Dr. Sherry Green saying this is great information that we're sharing. Dee Dee out of Texas said, hello, ladies. Thank you so much. Dr. Green again said, thank you. Very true. Dee Dee is saying facts on some of the things you all are saying. And she's saying, just like parents in school, it's important. Cassandra is saying, correct, Dr. Underdew, for the information you shared. She also said, exactly. Dr. Green said, powerful. Dee Dee said, whoa, so true. I understand. Yes. Morris is back. He has another comment. He says, hello, everyone. I was in foster care and I thank God for my path. How do you deal with the abandonment spirit that children wrestle with? Dr. Underdew, that is a great question. You are a social worker. Obviously, you're here as an advocate for adoption, but also you work with many children. Many. And I know you and I have talked about foster care as well.
Mhm.
And so he's been transparent and real. Thank you, Mr. Morris. Again,
Yeah.
not sure where you out of in USA, but it's a great question because a lot of times, and I want to give a kudos to him because as a male, you know, men of all cultures tend to have to be tough, and that doesn't bother me, and it's no biggie, and I don't talk about that dad wasn't around because it didn't affect me. But you know, as a social worker, Sadiq and I know as parents and living in this world and talking with people, things do affect children because they affect adults. And does one deal with the spirit of abandonment? Great question.
You know, that spirit foster care. I want to give out a shout out to those foster parents that are doing an exceptional job.
Yes. Yes.
Yes,
Those foster
yes,
parents who are filling in the gap, who are saying, "Hey, I'm your temporary, I'm your foster parent until your biological
that's right.
family gets it together, or till you find your forever family."
That's right.
There
Mhm.
are thousands of people out there. But
Yes,
then, Shayna, there are children who linger in foster care for years and years,
yes,
and who have multiple foster parents, and they are moved from place to place. And is it Morris? Morris
yes, it
has a
is.
story, you know, because it's very
Mhm.
traumatic to stay in care for so long and not being able to have that forever home,
Mhm.
to have that permanency. And there are foster parents who stay a permanent foster parent and choose not to permanently adopt,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe that foster child needs more services, and they know that once adoption happens, that counseling might not be more prevalent, the
Okay.
funds might not be there, because
Mhm.
sometimes we spank those parents on the hand, but they may can't afford the care for that
Right.
child. That child might have a disability that they would not be able to maintain if they don't continue in foster care. I hope that makes
Mhm.
sense to the audience.
Mhm.
Yes,
Mhm.
That
yes.
if
It
someone
does.
has a lot of mental health challenges
Okay.
because of the trauma, they may say, "Well, I don't know if I adopt, those services might go away," and they may go away.
Okay.
Trust.
Okay.
They
Real talk.
they real talk. The state, I look, I'm an advocate for the state, but that funding may cut off And so they said, I just choose to stay and be a foster
I
parent.
see. To be able to help.
Yeah, but I would
Yeah.
love, that's another show. Just having men on the show who grew
I
up in
love,
the foster
yes,
care
Morris.
system.
Thank you for your
Yeah.
transparency.
Mhm.
Thank you so so much, and I pray for anyone out there who may be going through an abandonment
Mhm.
issue or concept, that hang in there, be resilient,
Yeah.
and know that you certainly are wanted and loved. You are.
Yes, yes.
Representative Mary Ann Santos out of Georgia is giving kudos and claps to you,
Mhm.
ladies. Thank you,
Okay.
Rochelle, who is a business owner, one of the best acclaimed estheticians out there. She's got a
Mhm.
great question for us. She says, how do you deal with being a caregiver and it causing issues in your marriage? Shadika, this one's for you,
Mm.
especially
Yeah.
when your significant other has not had to experience being a caregiver. This is real talk for real people. Thank you,
Mhm.
Rochelle, for that
Yeah.
transparency question. Not
Mhm.
sure if it's affecting for you or just in general. That's a question we don't talk about, Sadika,
Mhm.
because we talk about November is National Caregiver Month and it's
Mhm.
celebratory and all those things come into play. However, when people do get sick and you happen to be with the love of your life and your forever
Mhm.
soulmate,
Mhm.
your mother or your father, or your biological child needs caring for, your sister,
Mhm.
that can be a lot. I know people don't talk about it because
Mhm.
it's nice to believe that he's okay with it, right? Let's it's but we're gonna be real here. We're gonna let the white
Mhm.
elephant out of the room.
Mhm.
Um, that's a lot on people, and I've had dear friends who had to take care of loved ones of their own and family members. Let's be real and just put it on the table. That's a lot of work mentally and emotionally. It takes a toll. There, I said it. So kudos to all the caregivers. Sadika, take
Mhm.
us away.
Oh, yeah. And that's a great question. And I thank the listener for that question.
Mhm.
And that's where, again, communication comes in.
Okay.
That's where getting all of the parties around the table and having a
Yes,
conversation. That's where self care comes in,
that's right.
and also respite care. Caregivers need a break, they need time to disconnect so that they can have time with their partners, so that they can have time for themselves. But yes, certainly, actually, the spouse or the partner is a part of that caregiving
Yes.
team. And so that person may come kicking and screaming, or he or she may come like, oh, I'm all in, whatever I can do to help. But you really have to have a conversation. Counseling may even be, you may have to get professional counseling to
Good
have that
point.
discussion. You have to get that village again, those siblings, whatever
Yes. Good point.
relatives that can come in. And then also, some people are not aware there are resources out there that you can tap into, depending on if you may be a veteran, or if you may
Okay.
or
Mhm.
if you may be in a certain income status. There are some resources that may be able to help you with that respite care, with being able to have,
Beautiful.
home care and other resources to come in so that you could be able to have that time with your spouse.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
I'm glad the person who asked the question kind of
yeah.
looked at it from the man actually being perhaps the spouse, and the
Yeah.
woman the caregiver. But we've seen it in reverse. As we mentioned earlier, men are caregivers too.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and even along that vein, we're finding that there are more younger people who are caregivers, more
Yes.
teenagers,
Mhm.
because we have that sandwich generation.
Yes.
So then you've got the young people who are having to rush home so that they can help take care of grandma or grandpa before the parents get home
Good
from work.
point.
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of dynamics working when you're talking about
It
caregivers.
is. It is.
Mhm.
And how much sure we know there's a lot of love that can be there. People can love their
Mhm.
mother-in-law, they can love their stepson, right? They can love their sister-in-law.
Mhm.
But it certainly when you move someone into the home, or if you move them in the nursing home 2 miles down the road, it has an
Mhm.
impact in the household. So
Mhm.
I think a lot of times, and obviously the caregiver, the primary caregiver is where the focus is. But also to your point, you could have a younger child who's 17 who has to take care of a brother who's going through some
Mhm.
issues. And
Yes.
that's real. And Thank you, Rochelle. What a great question. Sadiq, I've got to ask you this. When we talk about National Caregivers Month, often we think of the physical demise that can happen to the body. But can you really quick talk about some mental disruption that happens? We know there are Americans since COVID, mental and emotional health crisis has skyrocketed, right? And a lot of times the parents or someone has to step in. A lot of times that's not a physical component of it. That person can look like the son or the daughter or the spouse that we have known, but
Mhm.
mentally they're going through a crisis. How does that look on a caregiver level? Can that be more challenging, perhaps?
Oh, certainly. And as we all know, as we age, we're all familiar with the D word or the A word, Alzheimer's, which is a form
Yeah.
of dementia. But you know what we're seeing more lately? As the autism, that
Yes.
umbrella, we have
Mhm.
more people falling under the autism
Yes.
spectrum. We're
Mhm.
seeing more children having to, or older children having to help support their siblings
Yes.
because the parents are working and doing other things. So that's where we're seeing more younger people coming into that caregiving phase. But you know, also to your point around the mental health, which could be
Mhm.
anything,
Absolutely.
you're absolutely right.
Mhm.
And so it places an additional burden because we're lay people. So often we don't have the
Mhm.
education or the
That's
skill
right.
sets to
That's
deal
right.
with this. And so we were really relying to that professional community to help us. And so all of this is really a new phenomenon.
Mhm.
As you know,
Absolutely.
in the past, people would often, put people in what they used to
That's
say,
right.
insane asylums or put them in.
That's
Mhm.
But now
correct.
more people are trying to, manage their loved ones in the home. So then
Mhm.
Yes.
that brings another layer of situation in terms of resources that we don't
Mhm.
Yes.
have and education that we may not have to be able to handle those situations.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And
Mhm.
unlike the past, historical past of putting them away or in state hospitals, if you will, as you all
Mhm.
know, that existed
Mhm.
25, 35, 40
Yeah.
years ago. Also, the fact of people engaging more. I want to say that because there's stories my father has told me. My father's nearly 80 years old, where there were local individuals in the neighborhood. He's friends with them. He goes in a home to use the restroom and not realizing there was a room where there was someone with special needs, sort of just in there that they weren't
Mhm.
interacted with. There wasn't much engagement. My father,
Mhm.
being their friend, didn't even realize they had a sibling that had
Mhm.
special needs. So now I certainly would like to think that is minimum, not as much as maybe traditionally it was, just out of lack of education and exposure for the whole
Mhm.
United States and really the world. But
Mhm.
meaning when people do have any concerns, be it physical, mental, or emotional, that people are more proactive about interacting with those family members or
Mhm.
loved ones and not, like you said, just kind of put away. They don't even go see them. Now, even at nursing homes, to Dr. Underdue's point, people will go and be proactive, letting those professionals know, I'm here to see my aunt, my mom,
Mhm.
my brother,
Mhm.
regardless of what's going on. So we've changed that. Rochelle in our comment section says, and also for the oldest granddaughter. So when you said the oldest daughter, Sadika,
Oh
she's
yeah.
referencing the oldest granddaughter
Mhm.
may also see a
Yeah.
lot of that responsibility, which is a
Mhm.
very, very great point. Thank you so much. Our Representative Mary Ann Santos out of Georgia, she says also middle children. Don't forget the middle children hand raised up in the air. Middle children unite.
That's
Marianne,
right. That's
thank you
right.
so
That's
much. Dr. Sherry Green said, a blessing, beautiful. I think she's referencing adoption. Dr. Green also is another point out of Atlanta. She said, I met a retired couple who fostered three siblings, all of whom experienced very traumatic things. She loved on those sweet children and ultimately adopted them. I
right.
still shed tears when I think about it. These children have been thriving, beautiful children. What a great story. Thank you, Dr. Green, for that.
Mhm.
Dr. Underdo, I'm sure as a social worker, real talk for real people, you've seen a lot. You've seen a lot working with different children. How important is it that as a community, right? We talked about as a family unit with caregivers with Sadika, you talk about as a parent, but as a village, that we really do our best to pour into children, if there are children adopted or biological or not.
That is so important, and that village concept is the subject of my next children's book when I
Oh,
do that,
nice.
because even if you are someone out there that, what I want to do is do a special plea. if it's anybody out there in that audience that's thinking about being a foster parent, go and do your research and really think about it. If you're
Okay.
that older couple or that couple whose kids are out the house and you done already did your traveling and you're back at home, think about fostering. That could be your community service. That could be your gift to a child, is to consider
Beautiful.
fostering. Think about adopting. Think about adopting. Think about mentoring. I run a group home. I have 4 group homes in the
Okay.
Atlanta area. And I want to tell the audience group homes should be the last place where children should be,
Okay.
you know, because we want them in a family home setting,
Mhm.
in with their biological family, with fictive or extension kin. And we say fictive kin a lot because that fictive kin is like that neighbor, that family member that been in your life. You thought that that was your aunt, but it just turned out to be
Mhm.
your mom's best
Mhm.
friend for life.
Mhm.
You want to put them in those homes, then a foster home, and then a group home. And those group
Mhm.
homes are for kids who may have had multiple issues and challenges.
Okay.
But
Okay.
going back to what she said, it's a place for everybody. All these kids need a village.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
maybe you're
Yes.
mentoring with them. Maybe Sadiq
Mhm.
and I are in an organization where we have top teens, where we work with teenagers.
Yes.
Top Teens of America allows kids in foster care to be members of their organization. So we are
Beautiful.
able to mentor those kids.
Love
Shout
it.
out to our president, LaKendra Baker, who is an
Mhm.
advocate for kids in foster care.
Beautiful.
So we all have a role to play.
Beautiful. Yes.
It's churches out there that welcome children in foster
Mhm.
care.
Absolutely. That's right.
Morris
Mhm.
Brown
Mhm.
College has a whole outreach to children that are in foster care to come and
Nice.
be part of their university. We all have a role to play, whether it's small or large,
Beautiful.
to make sure we take care of our children. That's,
Mhm.
take care of our children. We got other campaigns out there,
Yes.
but we need to take care of our children and we need to take care of our seniors.
And simply be intentional and kind to one
Yes.
Yes.
another. I get,
Yes.
yes. Rochelle, getting to our questions as we begin to wrap up, ladies. Rochelle, I'm out of Atlanta Metro, said I have so many clients who are caregivers, and it's so comforting for us at the spa to be able to give them just an hour of serenity, calmness, and
Mm.
peace. My mother and I are both caregivers, and self care is mandatory. We are not well if we cannot take care of our loved ones. Um, what a powerful point, Rochelle. Thank you for bringing that up. Sadika, I know you're a huge advocate for self care. You
Mhm.
said that as well, Dr.
Mhm.
Underdew. But self
Mhm.
care has to be a part of that. Sadika, real talk for real people. I love the buzzword of self care, but you know this as a working professional, mother, and wife yourself. Self care sounds great, but a
Mhm.
lot of women and men just simply don't have the time, or in their mind, they say, I don't have the money to go to get a massage. Talk to us really quickly about some of the less expensive or free things that could be great emotionally for you.
Well, when you think about taking the time, we've got this wonderful cell phone here that you can put timers on. So set a
Yes.
timer. And when that timer goes out, you've got to go off, you have to go for it. I mean, small things like breathing exercises, long bubble baths. If you are a couple, give each other a massage, back massage, neck massage, foot massage. There's a lot of different things that you can, do, just being creative, taking a time to disconnect, maybe going for a ride. We've got the holidays coming up. Go out and go to some of these subdivisions and look at the beautiful decorations that are out there. So there's things that you can do that's not costly to practice that self-care. And I want, a lot of times as women, maintenance things like hair and nails, we might say, oh, that's self-care, but I believe that's really maintenance. I don't know if we should categorize that as self-care. I think self-care is really
That's right.
decompressing, you
That's
know
right.
yes, taking those quiet moments. And then, one of the benefits of social media, you can go out on YouTube or go on Instagram or somewhere and find do self yoga. chair yoga.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So really, that's one
Absolutely.
of the nice things about having those kinds of resources. So you don't have to pay any money. You could just go to YouTube and do it, find a chair yoga and do it on your
Yeah.
own.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so important. Nutritional advocates, some will also, what you're describing is they don't like the word diet because it seems temporary. So
Mm-hmm.
they're saying just say a lifestyle change. And what you're describing, you say self-care. A lot of times we say, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. You're saying advocating, just like Rochelle, something we're doing on a regular basis.
Yeah.
So it may not even be a bit could do. It's something every day. I'm going to take 20 minutes and take a mental break. 30
Yeah.
minutes a day, I'm going to walk
Mm-hmm.
around perhaps an apartment complex, and I'm going to do something good for me.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it does, allow people to check out and really get
Mhm.
refreshed is something they
Mhm.
certainly need to do. We want to keep
Mhm.
going, ladies, because we love the comments, the questions. This is your show. If you're a listener, get ready because we're about to wrap up. But you are watching the national award-winning podcast, Let's Talk America, with host Shana Thornton. I'm Shana, of course, your on-air host and your executive producer. We have the one and only Dr. Kimberly Underdew on with us. She is a professional clinical social worker out of Atlanta Metro. And we also have Sadiqa Gibson, an acclaimed gerontologist, on who runs a nonprofit really focusing on individuals being able to age gracefully, if you will, but tackling all of the real components from perhaps some decline that can happen mentally, emotionally, or physically. Okay, Miss Tanks says out of Atlanta, she says, I get a lot of questions around respite resources for caregivers. Where do I send
Mm-hmm.
people for resource information by county? Great question, Sadiqa.
It is a great question. I don't know if the young lady is out of Atlanta or not, but
She is.
okay, awesome. In Atlanta or in Georgia, we have a great resource called Empower Line, and that's empowerline.com. And it is and by ARC, the Atlanta Mission Area on Aging, and it is like a hub for all things seniors and caregivers. You can actually go there and you can type in your zip code and what you need. If you're looking for respite, if you're looking for, I don't know, assisted living, if you're looking for food resources, whatever the need is, they will guide you to the resources. Now that ARC, that's like a 12 or 14 county out around the Metro
Yes,
Atlanta
it
area.
is.
But outside of that, there are others. For example, when you're going like the Griffin area, it's called Three Rivers. And if you're heading, so yeah, but of course, every county within Georgia has one. You just need to reach out to the one that is pertaining to your particular county.
Got it. Thank you, Sadiqa, so much. Our next question comes back from Morris, the gentleman on with us. So, Dr. Underdo, this question's for you. He says, what do you think should be the first step when removing a child from a sexually abused environment? I'll let you take that on as a social worker.
Oh, Morris, you giving the good questions today, Morris. I think the first thing that when a child is removed from a sexually abused environment, number one, you definitely want to get the police involved. You definitely
Absolutely.
want to get the police involved.
Absolutely.
Number two, you want to get that child a forensic interview, be able to find out the who, the what, the where, the why, and the how from that child. You want to get that child some counseling from an experienced counselor. All counselors are not experienced
Mhm.
in certain things. Like
That's
for
correct.
instance, you don't pick any counselor. You pick a counselor that is experienced in working with children who have been sexually abused, because we know that adults and children, those are different mindsets. So you want to get that child
Mhm.
into a home. But let me go back. You want to first make sure that child is safe.
Okay.
Safety is number one. Put them in an environment where they're safe. And it's unfortunate, Morris, but that counseling and that therapy for that child may take a very long time to
Mhm.
process it. And
Mhm.
when the abuse comes from possibly a family member, it's going to take definitely a lot of time. And then when you get to a certain age, I had a friend that just finally, for her, she had to forgive her father who abused her.
Mhm.
She decided to sever that relationship, but she said forgiveness was for her, because
Okay.
being angry didn't help with her healing. That's her own
Okay.
story. That's her
Okay.
own story that doesn't. So get some, the first step is to make sure that child is safe. Morris got some nuggets in there. I
Mhm.
like the story.
Yes, he does. Thank you, Mr.
Morris.
Morris, for being so transparent and great questions as well. Thank you so much.
And Shannon, a
Questions that,
lot of young men are being sexually abused,
Mhm.
and it's hard for them to
yes,
express
yes,
themselves because it
yes.
may be from a same sex abuse.
Uh-huh.
It could be
Yeah.
some things, and you know how we are, unfortunately, in our community, where we conjure up different things behind that.
Mhm.
And what a great point, Dr.
Mhm.
Underdew. I want to go into, I've had the opportunity to interview victims who were survivors. Let me say that survivors,
Diverse.
thrivers, individuals who were resilient and pushed forward of both genders. And I do want to talk about that because you brought up a taboo subject, if you will. We do recognize that more women will come forward. We know that with
Mm-hmm.
police reporting and also getting the therapy they need. Men and therapists have told us this on the show, and psychiatrists are less forthcoming,
Yeah.
right? Really quick, briefly, and you talked about, like you said, that there can be things where people put a conjure all sort of crazy myths and theories, as
Mm-hmm.
if finding a reason to blame the victim,
Victim.
right? Which is absurd, it's crazy, it's insane, and it's toxic to me. But right now, you have the platform for the next 60 seconds to that young boy or that older gentleman. He may be 60 years old and never told anybody what happened to him,
Mhm.
of any gender, be it male or female, that violated him. Because I know in the society we live in, some people make light of adult women or older women violating young boys, but there's nothing funny about that. There's
No,
nothing
it's
to
not.
me that is a good old, a notch on the belt. That's inappropriate. It's out of line, just like we would say it for a young girl and an
Mhm.
older
Mhm.
male. And
Mhm.
right now, take this platform, Dr. Underdo, as a social worker, to speak to a male who needs healing, who needs to come to terms with something that was not his fault.
Mhm. I'm gonna tell that young man, that older man, the shame is not yours. The shame is not yours. It's not too late. Get help. If you don't feel comfortable in sharing your story with a female, there are good male therapists in the metro Atlanta area. There are great male support groups. There are groups out there where I saw the NAACP having man cave conversations
Mhm.
at the barber shop. I
Mhm.
don't you love that concept where
Mhm.
men come together
Absolutely.
and talk and
Mhm.
not have shame. I love the
That's right.
society that we are living in where people are able to say, I, I'm a survivor of sexual
Mhm.
abuse.
Mhm.
And I don't want any little boy out there
That's right.
to feel like he is alone, you
That's
know.
Mhm.
right.
So I would tell them, tell your story. When you are comfortable in telling that story, get counseling, get some help, peer support groups, get help for you. And the
Mhm.
shame is not yours. The
That's right.
shame is that abuser, whether it's
That's
another
right.
male or another female,
That's
who
Mhm.
right.
unfortunately Shayna was probably abused as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story. The
That
generation
is. That
It
is.
is. Yeah.
abuse.
That is. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for that input and taking a moment there. Real talk for real people, everyone.
Yeah.
Dr. Green, she did say to Mr. Morris, therapy is key, which you echoed as well for that child to be when they're removed from that environment. Therapy is key. Mr. Morris says, I know adults who never dealt with their trauma, and it's a
Mhm.
strong spirit to wrestle with. I think that's so true. I think if we know those individuals, witness it, or if we're those people ourselves, Mr. Morris,
Mhm.
that's real. Sadiqa, as someone who works with different groups, I'm sure you've ran across a lot of those caregivers who may not have been really healed, and then they're thrown in to maybe take care of a perpetrator or the villain in their story.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of resentment there. And
Yes.
yes, yes. So just as we've talked about this, the theme has been, seek therapy,
Yes.
Mhm.
communication. So yeah, a lot of healing has to occur for sure.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Mr. Morris says the trauma goes into the next generation and destroys the life of other children because the hurt in the wound. I think that goes into what the Dr.
Mhm.
Underdo sort of mentioned or echoed of, likely that perpetrator, likely that villain was abused themselves.
Yeah.
And they'll people will often say, we all know the cliche, hurt people will
Hurt
hurt
people.
people. I want to put a twist to it. That is true. But healed people don't hurt people. And there are a
Mm.
lot of healed victims out there, a lot of healed survivors who
Mhm.
would never want the pain they experience on someone else.
That's right.
So just want to mention that. So as well, Mr. Morris says, I know several men who were abused and women who refused to come forward. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. We certainly know that does exist out there. Dr. Underdew, I'll have you address that last comment there. He's saying women as well who don't come forward, who I guess maybe we know traditionally here in the United States, some family members, grandmothers or grandfathers of all cultures may have told them they'll handle it inside, maybe in their own way. I've heard of situations of family members, of friends of mine who have family members who years ago, they said 60, 70 years ago, they would keep the victim and the perpetrator away from each other, but it was the same home. When I hear that, my
Yeah.
mindset, I'm no social worker, I'm no therapist,
Yeah.
but I've interviewed a lot of people. I'm not sure you can heal in the same environment that broke you, but Dr. Underdew, you're an expert as a social worker. I'll let you handle that one.
Shana, it's so many stories like that, and where grandma's the uncle,
That's right.
grandma's son
That's right.
was the perpetrator to the granddaughter, and they said the granddaughter, you don't say anything. They send the uncle away for a year, then he come back,
Mm-hmm.
and you're told not to say anything, or you're not believed. Think about it. You're not believed, and you go through years and years not being believed in your story, being silent. Silence. Monique had that story with her brother
Mm-hmm.
and her mother. And so all I could say is, it's a very difficult topic. I'm glad that we have evolved a little bit
Mhm.
as a society. We again don't know what grandmama had to endure, but I
That's
would
right.
just
That's
tell
the
that,
point.
yeah, or grandmama's great aunt. I do believe everything is generational. A lot of things are generational, but we touched on that. But I would tell those individuals, get help. There's a village of people out there. You have
Yes.
your tribe out there that will love you and support you.
That's right.
And don't let anybody ever silence your story.
That's right.
Process that through counseling.
Yes.
Take your steps. You don't have to tell your story if you don't want to either.
Absolutely.
Some people say,
Mm.
hey, I want to keep that to myself. Don't feel shame. Don't feel like you're being silenced. Everybody doesn't have to, do their testimony, but get counseling. And let me say this about counseling. You have the diabetic that has to have their insulin,
That's
and they
right.
go to their endocrinologist.
That's correct.
If you are depressed or you have trauma, counseling is a good step for you. And
Mm-hmm.
there are a lot of people out there that are well versed, because some people like to go through spiritual counseling. I know several clinicians that are Christian counselors. They know the
Mhm.
word,
Absolutely.
they know the different religions,
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
they're trained clinicians at the same time.
Correct.
So I just tell people, find a good therapist for you. They're out there in the metro Atlanta. And just like we go to the OBGYN or the doctor, we don't
Yes.
like that person, we go to the next one. If you don't
That's
feel
right.
comfortable with your therapist, please try someone else. And I hope
Yeah.
I answered that question.
You did. You did. And such a great point as we begin to wrap up when you said if that does not work for you, that therapist, and you may not be getting what you
Mhm.
need, you can feel free to move on. And I think
Yes.
that's a great point because you said something that's real that we've had therapists on this show come and say. You have individuals that are grief counselors and grief therapists that do not have experience in sexual abuse.
No.
Okay, and or major depression or schizophrenia when you start talking about
Mhm.
psychiatry. So everyone has a niche of what they do. And what a great question. When we screen whoever you need to get in contact with, make sure that that person has experience in it. And I would hope a good therapist, a good psychologist, right, would actually let you know this is not my wheelhouse and I'm going to refer you to a colleague that has experience in this. That would be our
Exactly.
hope.
You
That's what
wouldn't
we would
have
hope.
you wouldn't have a pediatrician doing a heart transplant.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So
It's
Mhm.
that's
not one fit all, and that goes double for therapy as well. Okay, thank you. Dr. Green said, good point, Shayna. Thank you. I appreciate that. Representative Mary Ann Santos says mental health resources and peer support. Thank you so much. Nami, she says Nami. Nami, is that how you pronounce it, Dr.?
NAMI is great.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And she talked about peer supports. There are trained,
Yes.
certified peer support specialists that will, thank you, Representative Santos.
Thank you.
They are people who have had mental health challenges themselves. They may be diagnosed with bipolar disorder,
Yes.
schizophrenia. They're trained, so they're a peer support specialist to others, and that is a great field,
Yeah.
Mhm.
a great
Mhm.
resource. Because sometimes when you're going through something, you want to deal with somebody
Absolutely.
that has
Sure.
endured the same struggles you have.
Absolutely. I mean,
Mhm.
That's
when we
a great
think of
point.
Narcotics Anonymous or Alcohol Anonymous,
Yeah.
right? If you don't have experience in that addiction, right, or that situation, I can talk about it in theory, but to go down that lane, you need someone that would likely identify. Not saying everyone has to have had that same experience, but there's a lot of power in somebody
Yeah.
who's been healed or on the path of healing. I do want to give that number for anyone listening right now. If you feel unsafe, if you're feeling unhealthy mentally or emotionally, please, NAMI is there for you. It's 1 800 715 4225. Again, that's 1 800 715 4225. Thank you, Representative Mary Ann Santos, District 117 out of Georgia, for that information and tuning in. Thank you so much. Dr. Green said, remember Dr. Maya Angelou? She felt her voice caused the harm to the person who hurt her. Oh
Mm,
wow, that's a
Mhm.
powerful point. She was very
Mhm.
transparent
That's right.
about that. So
Mhm.
thank you for sharing that. Mr. Morris
Mhm.
say they hurt the victim trying to protect the family's name. That's something historically,
mm,
traditionally that has gone on in all cultures around the world.
mm,
And I think Dr. Underdo, you said it best. If someone's trying to protect her son, who's the uncle or a nephew or a cousin, they may be the same age or older, or trying to brush it under the rug, wanting to believe that could not happen in that family or that village. I will say, in a way, just to be upfront about it, the way I look at it as someone in communications, somebody has to have the family member or the friend who is toxic. And it's nice to think that those individuals are always somebody else's issue, right? But we
Mhm.
have to know those individuals too. And unfortunately, they may be in people's family, and we know that they're in someone's family. They're
mm.
somebody's brother, they're somebody's
Yeah.
uncle, it's somebody's aunt.
Mm.
So I think that's just being real, that sometimes that individual, that villain, that monster can be the person unfortunately, maybe the babysitter. So I once interviewed the gentleman who was a leader within DFACS, Dr. Underdew and Sadiq, and I asked him a question as a field reporter: what is the best piece of advice you can give any parent when it comes to their child? And he said, quote unquote, verbatim, have a healthy dose of skepticism with individuals dealing with your
Mhm.
children. That
Mm.
always stayed with me. He said a healthy dose, right? Not overly
Mm.
paranoid, but a healthy dose of curiosity
Mhm.
and questioning why they have an interest in your
Yeah.
child. And I think that's and that was years ago, many
Mhm.
years ago, but it still stands true. Dr. Underdo, you're a social worker. Do you agree?
I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I know that the village concept is great, but know who is in your village.
Yes.
Mhm.
Talk to the
Yes.
village. We've gotten away from. My son used to say, "Mom, this is so 1980s," and I was like, "1980 was yesterday," but he was like, for me it was, and he said, "You got to talk to everybody's parent, Mom. Why you got to talk to everybody's parent? That's how my parent raised me.
That's right.
Mhm.
That's how their parents raised them, and
Mhm.
we have gotten away from knowing our
Mhm.
children's parents.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We've
Yeah.
gotten away from knowing the football coach who's picking up our
Absolutely.
children. We've gotten
Absolutely.
away, who are great people, by the way. It's more great ones than not.
Absolutely.
So I want
Absolutely.
to give it out to them, but we sit down, we don't break bread with them, we don't take the time to get to know them. And I'm gonna tell you, as a parent, I'm gonna know everybody who touches and feels my child, not in the in the literal
Sure.
sense and in the mental sense. So we've gotten away from that because we done got busy and social media is out
That's
there.
right.
Mhm.
That's
We
right.
Mhm.
got to do that. And I like
Mhm.
that healthy dose of
That's what
skepticism.
I still remember him saying that. It stuck with me all these years. As
Yeah.
we begin to close out, Mr. Morris says, "Great job, ladies. Thank you, Morris. Thank you for sharing great questions as well. We certainly appreciate you, sir." Dr. Green said, "This has been a great talk." Thank you, Dr. Green. We appreciate all you've done in pouring into children
Yeah.
over the last few decades as a leader in the education field. Mr. Morris says, "Empathy is better than sympathy."
Mhm.
Okay, thank you for that, sir.
Mhm.
And Dr. Green said, "We're going to let this be the last closeout." Amen. Thank you. Thank you, everybody watching us on Facebook, our YouTube family. We appreciate you. Stay tuned in. Before we get out of here, we're not done yet. We've got a very critical close out. Sadiq, I want to put the spotlight on you before we head out. Caregiving. November's Caregivers Month. You shared a lot of information. The questions led right into it.
Mhm.
If you have the next minute or so, right now, why is it so important for caregivers to make sure they stay as balanced as possible, for them to give themselves to a sickly or concerning family member or loved one? Make your case. I know it's a wonderful case. You've made it to me before, but for
Mhm.
those listening right now who are givers or caretakers, if you will, caregivers in a
Mhm.
sense, and also for those who may say, "Oh, that concerned me," but as our parents age, as we age, and
Mhm.
as we can't predict life, we don't know where we will end up being a
Mhm.
caregiver.
Mhm. Well, Shauna, that's a great question, and I'll tell you, I'm back to my statistics. I'm talking data tonight. 35% of caregivers pass away before the person that they're caring for. Now,
Wow.
if that's not a reason
Yeah.
to get involved in self-care and get making sure you have respite time, if that's
Yeah.
not a reason, I don't know what is. And certainly, I stated earlier that our former First Lady Rosalind Carter, she has a big dementia program, and
Mhm.
on her website, she says just what I said earlier. We all are in this together. We're
That's
either
right.
currently a caregiver, we will be a caregiver, we have been a caregiver, or we will need caregiving. And as we look at the numbers, with this, if you're born in 1964, you're the end of the baby boomers.
That's
And so
right.
that means, yes. So that means that people who are 85 and over are going to become more than 20% of the population.
Hmm.
And so that is a case for all of us getting involved, all of us starting to think about who's going to
Mhm.
care for me? What do I have in place? Let me get my will together, my
Yeah.
trust. Let
Good
me get a
point.
power of attorney. Let me go ahead and make sure that I take care of myself. And I know we hear this so often. It's beginning to sound trite, but I mean, it's so true. Get those annual physical exams,
That's right.
get the mammography, get the colonoscopy. Eat right, stay away from the processed foods. When you're in the grocery store,
As
shop
much
the
as possible.
perimeter of the grocery store. I'm talking to myself now. Hop on that treadmill. Hop on that treadmill sometime. that
She
we
is
have.
I and I are you.
Yes, yes. So I mean, taking care of yourself is just critically important right now, and all care. And the thing about it, due to the advances in medicine and technology, we're able to live longer. But hey, we want
Yes.
to live a good quality of life while we're
Yeah.
living. We don't want to
Absolutely.
be longer living in the bed. We want to
That's
be
right.
living longer and up and energetic and doing things, living
Absolutely.
our best life. So yeah.
I
Shane,
love that.
Shana, I
Sure.
do. I know we're about to close, but I've been getting several texts, and I'm going to be remiss if I don't say this.
You go ahead. Is it?
No, go ahead, Shana. Go ahead.
No, go ahead, lady. We were gonna put the spotlight on you next.
Oh, okay. I wanted
So
to say,
I did want to thank Sadiqa for that great information on caregivers, and you are so right. And I was just going to piggyback on and be compliant and make sure with those screenings, we're going to the doctor and following up. Not letting the doctors tell us we got high blood pressure and we got type 2 diabetes and we never return, but making sure we're addressing those. So, like you said, we're not just alive, but alive with a quality life. And I know many people hear medicine and they like, oh, no, no, no. But I do want to just add up that we have to remember that innovation in medicine, which I happen to believe is with God, allows us to be the healthiest we can be too. Doesn't mean you have to stay on it. And but it is a conversation worth have, and make sure you're weighing the good versus if there's any bad with it and outweighing the risk of any side effects. So just being aware of that and not saying I'm not going to be on any medication. I know many people that say that, and I've seen some things happen to them as well. Demise, not addressing those because it doesn't get better because you ignore it. It does not.
No.
That's correct. And you know what? And also the commercials. You'll see the commercials about the medication and they'll give you a laundry list of all of the side effects, but not say that's one out of
Correct.
yeah, a
5
million
million
people who
people.
happen to have
Mhm.
this. And then you're chatting with your friend. Oh, no, I'm not going to take that statin because I'm going to
Correct.
have the leg cramps and I'm going to have this. But the statin is going to prevent a stroke or a heart
Mhm.
attack. So that's why
Correct.
you need to take it. So,
And
yeah, we got
correct.
to be careful about that.
Correct. And we have to remember when we talk about strokes or heart attacks, or even aneurysms, things of that sort, there are a certain amount of people that do survive them, and think of the quality of life. So let's try to take care of ourselves as much as possible, especially when it comes to cardiovascular things such as that stroke and heart attack. Dr. Kimberly Underdew, you weren't going to leave us without talking about that book. I don't know if that's what you were going to
Oh
bring
no,
up.
that's not what I was referring
Oh,
to, but I do need to speak about the book. But I want to also talk about the connection of caregiving and adoption and foster care.
okay.
There are so many grandparents that are taking care of their grandchildren in
Yes.
foster care. There's so many oh, family members caregiving for their family members, and some of these kids have different abilities. I like to use the word different abilities.
Mhm.
They may have physical different abilities. They may have mental health different abilities. So
Mhm.
shout out to those
Right.
individuals that are caring for children that are family members of theirs that are in foster care,
That's right.
and they're caregiving and they're also fostering the children at the same time.
That's
So I
right.
just had a friend who's a social worker said, Kim, you got to collide both of these,
That's
bring them
it.
together.
That's thank your friend for that.
Yeah,
That is a beautiful
Mhm.
point. And
yeah.
and as you, the three of us all would know, we've heard this our entire lives, I'm sure. Thank God for a praying grandmother, because the
Ooh,
grandmothers have stepped in
Mhm.
tremendously,
Mhm.
without the recognition, without any
Mhm.
financial aid or assistance.
that's right.
Kimberly, Dr. Underdew, for many years, they have done that simply because of the love of their seed,
Yeah.
of taking care and stepping in. And I'm not a grandparent yet, but my own father says you love your children dearly, but there's a love with grandchildren where you want to see them go forward and be successful.
Mhm.
Dr. Underdew, before you tell us, and I want you to close us out with your book,
Mhm.
and your advocacy on so much for children,
Mhm.
adoption, and also literacy with your new book. I want to put that
Mhm.
in. But this is going to be our final last comment, and this is because it's related to Sadiqa. Cassandra out of Atlanta says this: just so you know, assisted living homes provide respite care. If you're a caregiver needing a little break, you can bring your loved one there for a short stay to help you recharge. Interesting point. Thank you,
Yeah.
Cassandra, for letting us know
Mhm.
that.
Mhm. That is correct. That is correct. And we have plenty of them throughout Metro Atlanta, and provides that service. And
Thank
again,
you.
I mentioned the empowerline.com. You can find those resources there as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Cassandra, for that
Mhm.
point. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to close up. She's going to close us up, but she is an amazing author as well. It was mentioned by her friend, Miss Gibson. Dr. Underdew, tell us about this amazing book, and what's captured in the book.
Okay, Shana, thank you. I almost forgot about the book. I was so involved in the conversation. But when my son became 18 years old, I said, I want to write about our story, about how you came into my life, and all that went into it. And so we called it Finding Home, the story of Miss Kim and King Nick. And you may
Oh,
say, well, what's up with Miss Kim? Well, my son, because he, as I think it's Morris discussed about
yes.
foster care, my
Yes.
son didn't trust that I was going to adopt him. So for
Mm.
months and months and months, he called me Miss Kim. And when I signed that intent to adopt, that's when he called me mom.
Ah,
And so that's why it's a story of Miss Kim and King Nick. And King Nick is just, it's a symbol of that all kids that are in care have,
beautiful.
they have the right to be treated as kings and
That's
queens, as
right.
princes and princesses.
That's right.
And it's just a story about how he dreamed about a forever family. And he didn't just get me, he got an uncle, he got
Oh,
grandparents, and he got cousins. And so
oh,
it is number one new release on
oh,
Amazon for
wow.
children and adoption, number one for African American and Black stories, and number seven, it reached number seven overall for books on children and adoption. It's my first book, but it will not be my last because I want to tell
Congrats.
these stories about children in care and just some of the different twists that comes along with it. I thank you for the opportunity and letting me
Beautiful.
share that.
Ah,
I'm a new author, and I hope that I keep writing, that I write about my son's teenage years, which
oh, wow.
that's where the juice happens, because, and that's a whole nother level, because when you're an adoptive mom, other things and aspects come into it.
Yes.
And so I'm looking to talk about the adventures of Teen Nicholas in a few years, to just talk about
Love it.
some of the adventures we went through during those teenage years.
We love
Yes.
it. Thank you, Dr. Underdo, for all
Thank
that you're
you.
doing in the community and also joining the book of the Club of Literacy Advocates as well to tell that story. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, ladies, I appreciate the two of you coming on and sharing your passion and love, respectively, for the topics. If it's being a caregiver, thank you, Sadiqa and Dr. Underdo. Also, social work and advocacy for adoption. It truly matters. Ladies and gentlemen, what a show tonight. Great questions for everybody. Stay tuned in. Let's Talk America with host Shana Thornton offers real talk for real people, and that's you. We want you to be educated, informed, and engaged. And after all, you never know when certain topics or subjects will concern you, right? So you can't say, well, that doesn't has anything to do with me right now. You never know where life can take you a year from now or 5 years from now. And we believe being prepared, being proactive, and already being informed will certainly make a difference. And after all, that's the whole structure of education. Stay with us, okay? We have the best and the brightest, as you can see tonight, from our exclusive guests. Everyone have a wonderful holiday season. We'll see you in the midst of it, but spend wonderful time with family and friends and have the key conversations. And if no one's told you today, you are loved. Have a great one, everyone. Signing off. Thanks, ladies.
Thank
Bye.
you, Shana. Thank you.